It was a cold, misty morning in the quiet town of Millersfield. The mountains stood like silent guardians in the distance, and the dew-soaked grass shimmered under a pale gray sky. At the edge of an open field, a small wooden cabin flickered with warm orange light through its windows. In front of it, a 6-year-old girl named Nora Jane Ellison stood frozen in disbelief. Her hands covered her mouth, and her wide blue eyes darted nervously among the 20 German shepherds surrounding her in perfect formation. Each dog wore a black harness marked with a single word: police. The dogs didn't bark. They didn't move. They just stared, their heads tilted slightly, as if waiting for something. The silence was unnerving, interrupted only by the faint whistle of wind slipping through the pine trees. Nora's white blouse fluttered softly against the breeze, and her small shoes were soaked from the wet grass. Yet she didn't cry or scream. Somehow she felt seen, known, and more than that, safe. Leading the circle was a large, muscular shepherd with sharp amber eyes. His name, stitched onto his collar, read Atlas. His presence was imposing, but something in his expression felt different from the others, almost human. He stared at Nora, unblinking, as if searching for something in her face. Nora took a shaky breath, lowered her hands, and slowly raised one arm. Her fingers stretched toward Atlas with innocence and trust only a child could have. For a long second, nothing happened. The fog hung heavy, the world still. But then Atlas took a step forward. One paw, then another. His tail didn't wag, but his posture relaxed. The other dogs stayed still, watching. When Atlas finally reached her, he didn't sniff or growl. He bowed his head and gently pressed his nose into the palm of her hand. That's when everything changed. The rest of the dogs, in perfect harmony, lowered their heads simultaneously. It was as if they recognized her, not just as a child, but as someone important, someone familiar. From inside the cabin, a soft voice called out, trembling, "Nora!" It was her grandmother, Rosemary Ellison, who had no idea what was happening outside, or why the police K-9 unit had appeared on her property. But Nora didn't answer. Her eyes were locked with Atlas's, her hand still resting gently on his muzzle. There was something in his gaze, something that pulled at a thread buried deep inside her, something no one had told her, something impossible. And in that silent exchange, everything began to unravel. Rosemary Ellison stood frozen in the doorway of the cabin, her hand gripping the frame for support. Her heart pounded in her chest as she squinted through the fog. The sight before her didn't make sense. 20 uniformed police dogs standing in a semicircle around her granddaughter, with one of them gently nuzzling the girl's palm like an old friend. There were no officers in sight, no patrol cars nearby, no radios crackling. Just Nora, standing there like she belonged in the middle of it all. "Nora Jane," she called again, this time stepping down from the porch. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper. A memory stirred, a feeling she couldn't quite name. As she walked slowly toward the child, the dogs didn't move, but their eyes tracked her. Every single one of them, especially the big one, Atlas. He watched her approach with the calm intensity of someone who knew more than he should. Nora turned her head slightly and smiled. "Grandma, they're not here to hurt us," she said softly. "They know me." Her voice was calm, almost too calm for a 6-year-old. It sent a chill down Rosemary's spine. "They've been waiting," Nora added, her hand still resting on Atlas's head. The dog didn't flinch. Rosemary's knees weakened, and she crouched next to her granddaughter. "Sweetheart, where did they come from?" she asked, brushing a strand of blonde hair from Nora's face. But Nora only shook her head. "They came when I remembered the picture," she said cryptically. Rosemary blinked. "What picture?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Nora pointed to the front room of the cabin. "The one in the box under your bed. The one with Daddy and the dog that looks like him." Rosemary's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't shown Nora that photo. She was sure of it. It was an old picture, her son Sam in uniform, kneeling beside a young K-9 officer. A dog that looked exactly like Atlas. That photo had been hidden for years, tucked away with the pain of Sam's disappearance. No one, not even Nora, was supposed to know it existed. Suddenly, a sharp bark echoed from the woods behind them. The dogs all turned in unison, ears alert. The moment of quiet was shattered by tension. Atlas stepped forward, standing protectively in front of Nora. Something or someone was nearby. Rosemary instinctively pulled the girl closer, heart racing. In the distance, branches cracked under heavy footsteps. The fog thickened, and somewhere out there, something was coming. The sound of footsteps crunching through the underbrush grew louder, echoing across the fog-covered clearing like a warning. Rosemary stood protectively in front of Nora, her breath quick and shallow. The dogs formed a tight perimeter around them, their bodies tense and eyes locked in the direction of the approaching sound. Atlas remained closest to Nora, ears forward, his massive frame ready for anything. It wasn't just alertness, it was anticipation. He knew what or who was coming. Out of the mist emerged a tall, broad-shouldered figure in tactical gear, slowly raising both hands in the air. "Don't be afraid," the voice called out. It was steady, low, and familiar. As the figure stepped closer, Rosemary's heart skipped a beat. The man removed his cap and goggles, revealing a face she hadn't seen in over 3 years. Samuel Ellison, her son, Nora's father. Alive, Nora gasped, her eyes wide as she stepped forward, but Atlas gently blocked her path with his body. "Daddy?" she whispered. Rosemary couldn't find the words. Her knees nearly gave out. Sam stood there in silence for a moment, soaking in the sight of his daughter. His eyes filled with emotion, but he didn't move closer. "It's really me," he said gently, "but I can't stay long, not yet." "What do you mean you can't stay?" Rosemary demanded, her voice shaky but sharp. "You disappeared, Sam, for 3 years. You let us think you were dead." Her voice cracked, the pain she had buried finally breaking through. But Sam's eyes shifted toward the tree line behind him. "I had no choice, Mom. They were after me and Atlas. We were part of something they tried to erase." Nora reached up and took hold of Atlas's ear gently, her way of grounding herself as the story unfolded. "They thought if they silenced me, they'd silence what we knew," Sam continued. "But the dogs, they remember, especially Atlas. He never forgot her." He looked down at Nora with awe. "She's the key. I didn't understand it before, but now I do." Suddenly, a sharp electronic crackle echoed from the trees. A radio signal, scrambled but active. Sam's face hardened. "They found me," he muttered. "I have to go, but they'll come here next." He turned to Atlas and gave a single hand signal. The dog responded instantly, taking position beside Nora. "Protect her with your life," Sam whispered. Then, without another word, he disappeared back into the mist, just as quickly as he had come. The only thing left behind was the weight of his words, and the storm now on its way. Rosemary locked the cabin door as fast as her shaking hands would allow. The old wood creaked under the pressure, but the bolt held firm. Outside, the police dogs remained in position, silent, alert, and forming a living shield around the cabin. Inside, Nora sat cross-legged on the rug near the fireplace, cradling Atlas's massive head in her lap. His eyes stayed on the front window, watching, waiting. Rosemary paced the room, her thoughts spiraling. Sam was alive, after 3 years of silence, grief, and unanswered questions. He just walked out of the fog like a ghost, and then vanished again just as quickly. But his warning rang in her ears. They'll come here next. She didn't know who they were, or what secret Sam had uncovered, but she felt the danger rising in her bones. Something bigger than all of them was closing in. She walked into her bedroom and knelt beside the old cedar chest under the bed. With a grunt, she pulled it out and flipped the latch. Inside were memories she had tried to bury. Sam's childhood photos, his academy graduation picture, and then the photo, the one Nora had mentioned. Sam, in uniform, kneeling beside a younger Atlas. It was dated 6 years ago. That couldn't be right. Atlas should be long gone. But here he was, unchanged, still strong, still watching over Nora. Back in the living room, Nora's soft voice broke the silence. "Grandma, I remember him, Atlas, from before." Rosemary turned, startled. "Before what, sweetheart?" Nora looked up, her eyes full of something far too deep for a 6-year-old. "Before Daddy went away, before the dream stopped." She paused, then added, "I used to see Atlas in the woods, at night, but I never told anyone." A loud thud hit the porch outside, then another. Rosemary's heart dropped. She rushed to the window, pushing aside the curtain. Figures moved through the fog, 3 of them, dressed in black tactical gear, faces hidden by helmets. No police insignia, no badges, just silence and purpose. The dogs growled low and in unison. Atlas rose slowly from Nora's lap and stepped forward like a commander preparing for battle. Rosemary grabbed her old shotgun from above the fireplace, her fingers trembling. She wasn't about to lose Sam again or let anyone touch Nora. As she chambered a shell, she looked down at her granddaughter. "Go to the cellar, now." Nora hesitated, clutching Atlas's fur, but the dog nudged her gently toward the trapdoor under the rug. As Nora lifted the latch, a whisper escaped her lips. "They're not just after Daddy, they're after me." The first window shattered before Nora could fully disappear into the cellar. The crash sent shards of glass flying across the hardwood floor as Rosemary swung the trapdoor open with all her strength. "Go!" she yelled, her voice raw with panic. Atlas didn't wait. He leapt down beside Nora, shielding her as they dropped into the darkness. Rosemary slammed the hatch shut just as a second window exploded behind her. Outside, the dogs launched into action. The synchronized growls turned into thunderous barks, and within seconds, the attackers on the porch were met with a fury of teeth and muscle. Through the chaos, Rosemary spotted one of the intruders get pulled down by 2 shepherds, Gunner and Echo. She recognized from their distinct markings. The figure screamed, then fell silent. The others retreated back into the fog, but it was clear they weren't finished. Down in the cellar, Nora sat trembling on the cold dirt floor, wrapped in Atlas's massive body like a blanket. The old cellar was dark, lit only by a single battery-powered lantern. Dust danced in the beam as Nora's breathing slowed. Her small fingers gripped Atlas's collar, drawing comfort from his presence. "Why do they want me?" she whispered. Atlas didn't move, but his ears twitched. He was listening, always listening. Back upstairs, Rosemary reloaded the shotgun with shaking hands, then glanced down at the hatch. She could hear Nora's muffled voice, barely a whisper. "They know I can see things," the girl said. "Things Daddy told me to forget." Rosemary blinked, stunned. Forget? What had Sam done to protect his daughter? What did Nora mean by see? Memories started surfacing. Odd drawings Nora had made as a toddler, dreams she spoke of with uncanny detail. Rosemary had always dismissed them as imagination. Now she wasn't so sure. The house grew still again. No footsteps, no gunfire, just the dogs circling outside, growling low, like wolves guarding sacred ground. Rosemary moved to the back window and spotted movement near the treeline, brief but unmistakable. They were regrouping, preparing for something bigger. This wasn't just a raid, it was a retrieval. And Nora wasn't just a target. She was the objective. Suddenly, the radio on the mantel crackled to life. A distorted voice broke through the static. "Unit Bravo to base. The girl is confirmed. Repeat, the girl is confirmed. Proceed with Phase 2. Rosemary's blood turned to ice. She snatched the radio and hurled it into the fireplace. Sparks flew. She turned to the trapdoor, heart racing. Whatever Phase 2 was, it was coming, and they weren't ready for it. The cellar walls felt like they were closing in. Nora sat curled beside Atlas, her knees tucked tightly to her chest, her breath shallow. The air smelled of earth and old wood, and the silence was broken only by the distant sound of dogs barking and muffled thumps from above. Atlas stayed perfectly still, his body coiled but calm, his eyes fixed on the cellar door as if waiting for the worst. Nora leaned into him and whispered, They're not going to stop, are they? Upstairs, Rosemary moved through the cabin with deliberate steps, every creak in the floor making her flinch. She had lived a long life, seen hard years, but nothing had prepared her for this. Her son returning from the dead, a secret child with a hidden gift, armed men chasing them through the fog. She gripped the shotgun tighter and muttered under her breath, "You've come for the wrong girl." Outside, the dogs had resumed formation, though several bore signs of the earlier fight, scratches, small cuts, one limping slightly. But they stayed ready, their bond with each other, and with Nora, unbreakable. Atlas hadn't moved from her side, but Scout, Bear, and Sadie took positions around the cabin, scanning the perimeter with laser focus. The enemy hadn't returned yet, but it was only a matter of time. In the cellar, Nora closed her eyes. Images flashed through her mind, some familiar, some strange. A metal room, a table with bright lights, voices arguing, a man yelling her name. She didn't know if they were memories or dreams, but they felt real, too real. She whispered to Atlas, "I think they tried to erase me, like Daddy said, but you remembered. You found me." Atlas tilted his head slightly, and for a moment, it felt like he understood every word. Suddenly, a loud metallic clang rang out above them, followed by a short, sharp whistle. Then silence. Rosemary rushed to the trapdoor and called down, "They're trying to force us out. They're dropping something. Gas, maybe." Her voice was strained but firm. "We have to move now." She unlocked the side cellar door, hidden behind crates and old tools, rarely used in decades. "Come on, baby," she said, more to herself than to Nora. Atlas rose first, ears alert. Nora followed, her small hand gripping his fur. The tunnel beyond the cellar door led deep into the woods, a forgotten escape route from generations ago. They didn't know where it would end, but staying meant certain capture. And out there in the fog, somewhere between the trees and the shadows, a darker truth waited, one that would change everything they thought they knew. The tunnel was cold and narrow, carved decades ago as an old storm escape route, long before the world had become this dangerous. Rosemary led the way with a dim flashlight in one hand and her shotgun in the other, every step echoing faintly through the dirt-lined passage. Behind her, Atlas moved with silent precision, guiding Nora like a shadow. The girl held tightly to his fur, her feet moving quickly to keep pace, her heart pounding not just from fear, but from something rising inside her, something she couldn't name. The air grew damp as they pushed deeper underground. The tunnel curved slightly, and Rosemary could hear the distant hum of wind above, muffled and strange. "It should come out near the south ridge," she whispered, not turning back. "If it hasn't collapsed." Nora didn't respond, her mind was racing. Her father's face flashed in her thoughts, followed by the men in black, the voices on the radio, and that strange moment when Atlas touched her hand like he remembered her from another life. Back at the cabin, the remaining dogs had stayed behind, defending the home. But as Nora moved farther into the tunnel, a strange sensation passed through her. It was as if she could still feel them, Scout, Sadie, echo, like they were connected by something more than sound or sight. It wasn't just loyalty, it was understanding, as if the dogs could hear her thoughts. She turned to Atlas. "Can they feel me?" she asked softly. He looked at her, his gaze deep and steady. No bark, no whine, just quiet acknowledgement. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the tunnel, then a boom. Dust rained down from above, and the ground vibrated beneath their feet. Rosemary stopped in her tracks. "They blew the cabin," she said grimly. "They're done trying to scare us. Now they want to erase us." The flashlight flickered for a second, then steadied. Nora's grip on Atlas tightened. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, but something in her eyes had changed, hardened. As they reached the end of the tunnel, the narrow exit was covered with vines and branches. Rosemary pushed through first, emerging into a dense patch of forest. The air was cooler here, fresh, and tinged with the scent of pine. "We have to keep moving," she said. "If Sam's alive, he'll find us. But we can't stop now." Nora stepped into the clearing, her face lit by the moon. Atlas stayed pressed to her side. Somewhere behind them, a drone buzzed faintly in the distance, scanning. But Nora didn't flinch. She stared ahead and said in a voice clearer than ever before, "They're not hunting me because I'm lost. They're hunting me because I remember." The forest seemed endless. Every tree looked the same. Every shadow stretched unnaturally long under the pale moonlight. Rosemary moved quickly despite her age, driven by fear and instinct, but even she could feel time slipping away. Nora walked close behind, her hand resting firmly on Atlas's back. The dog remained silent and alert, constantly scanning their surroundings. The further they moved from the cabin, the stronger Nora's connection to the dogs became, as if every step through the forest awakened more of what had been buried deep inside her. They reached a small clearing where the moonlight poured down like a spotlight. Rosemary motioned for them to stop and crouched behind a fallen log, trying to catch her breath. "We need to find shelter before sunrise," she whispered. "They'll have heat drones and dogs of their own by then." But Nora wasn't listening. Her eyes were fixed on a tree stump nearby. Carved into it was a symbol, faded but still visible. A triangle with a line through the middle. "I've seen that before," she muttered. "In my dreams." Rosemary followed her gaze, her heart sinking. "Sam used to draw that. Said it was part of something called Project Echo. He never explained what it meant." Atlas suddenly let out a low, warning growl. His body stiffened, and his eyes locked onto the shadows behind them. Nora turned, placing a hand on his neck. "It's not them," she said calmly. "It's someone else." Out of the darkness stepped a figure, hooded, limping slightly. His face came into view, and Rosemary gasped. It was Dr. Calvin Brooks, the old veterinarian who'd vanished from town years ago after a scandal involving military dogs and missing research files. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a raspy voice. "But I suppose it's too late for that now." Rosemary raised her shotgun instinctively, but he lifted his hands. "I'm not with them," he said. "I helped your son escape once, and I can help her now, if you let me." Nora stepped forward without fear. "You were there, weren't you? When they tested the dogs. When they tested me." Dr. Brooks looked at her, stunned. "You remember?" She nodded. Pieces, flashes, the cold room, the wires, the man with the scar behind his ear. Brooks exhaled slowly. "Then they'll never stop coming for you, because you weren't just part of the program, you were its success." Rosemary stared at him. What the hell did they do to her? Brooks looked away. They tried to create a connection that couldn't be broken, between a child's mind and the instincts of trained animals. Nora wasn't just compatible. She was the link. Atlas stepped forward, standing protectively in front of the girl. The truth was finally beginning to surface, but with it came the terrifying realization that Nora wasn't just being hunted. She was the key to something much bigger. The night had grown colder, and the trees around them whispered with every gust of wind. Dr. Calvin Brooks led them through a narrow path hidden beneath the overgrowth, his limp slowing their pace. "There's an old ranger station ahead," he said quietly. "Abandoned for years. They won't expect you there." Rosemary kept a wary eye on him, the shotgun still gripped tight in her hands. Nora stayed between them, with Atlas never more than a few inches from her side. The dog hadn't relaxed once since leaving the tunnel. They reached the cabin just before dawn. It was weather-beaten, missing shingles, and half-covered in moss, but it would have to do. Inside, it smelled of dust and damp wood. Brooks lit a small lantern and set it on a crate. "You need to hear everything," he said, turning to Nora. "When you were a baby, they didn't just study your responses, they trained you. Your mind processed the dog's signals faster than anything we'd ever seen. You weren't just communicating. You were commanding." Nora sat down slowly, her eyes wide but calm. "But I don't remember all of it," she said. "Only pieces." Brooks nodded. "That's because they suppressed your memory. Sam knew what they were doing. When he found out the full extent, he tried to shut it down. They tried to silence him. That's why he ran." Rosemary's voice cracked as she asked, "And the dogs? Atlas? Are they part of her?" Brooks glanced at the German shepherd, who was now lying beside Nora but alert. He was imprinted with her signal before she could even speak. That bond? It's permanent. Suddenly, a loud ping echoed from outside, the sharp metallic click of motion sensors activating. Brooks froze. "They've found us." Before anyone could move, Atlas jumped to his feet, growling. The air felt electric, charged with tension. Nora didn't flinch. Instead, she stood, eyes focused on the window. "They're not alone," she said. "They brought the others. The new ones. The ones they trained to kill." Brooks looked horrified. "They activated Protocol Gray." He turned to Rosemary. "If they're using those dogs, we don't stand a chance. Not without her." Rosemary looked at her granddaughter, and for the first time, saw something more than innocence. She saw resolve. Nora stepped forward, placing her hand gently on Atlas's head. "Then we make our stand here." Her voice was steady, calm, powerful. The sky outside began to brighten with the first hints of dawn. But it wasn't peace that came with it, it was war. In the distance, the faint sound of approaching footsteps and growls crept closer. Nora stood tall, Atlas beside her, and the old ranger station became their final battleground. Whatever was coming, she was ready. The first shot rang out just as the sun crested the horizon, casting golden light across the forest. The ranger station shook from the blast, and shards of the front window rained across the floor. Rosemary ducked behind a crate, firing once into the trees before reloading with trembling hands. Outside, the enemy closed in, dozens of dark figures with weapons drawn, and behind them, the new dogs. Sleek, mechanical-looking K9 units bred for one purpose: destruction. But inside, Nora stood perfectly still, her eyes locked with Atlas's. Dr. Brooks rushed to a console in the corner of the room, an old signal box he had salvaged from the program's early days. "If she can reach the others, if she can override their commands." His hands worked fast, reconnecting wires and flipping switches. "Nora, you have to try. It's the only way." Nora nodded once, stepping into the center of the room as Atlas circled her protectively. She closed her eyes, breathed deep, and whispered something no one else could hear. A frequency, a feeling, a memory. Outside, the dogs stopped. Not all of them, but enough. A few of the aggressive K9s slowed, ears twitching, confused. They looked toward the cabin, then at Nora. A wave of silence rippled through the battlefield, cutting through gunfire and chaos like a knife. Nora stepped out of the cabin doorway, unafraid, Atlas at her side. She raised one hand slowly, her palm open to the dogs. Her voice, when it came, was soft but commanding. "Stop!" And they did. The human soldiers hesitated, shouting orders, trying to force the dogs forward. But it was too late. One by one, the trained killers turned against their own handlers. Confused, divided, Atlas barked once, sharply, and the others responded, forming a loose circle around Nora as if drawn to her presence. Dr. Brooks stumbled out after her, stunned. "She's rewriting the command structure," he said in disbelief. "She's overriding the entire system." In the chaos, the enemy retreated, some fleeing into the woods, others calling for emergency extraction. The experiment they tried to erase had become unstoppable. Nora collapsed to her knees, drained, her energy spent. Atlas pressed his head into her shoulder as Rosemary ran to her side, wrapping her in trembling arms. "It's over," she whispered. "You did it." Nora looked up, tears in her eyes. "They'll come back," she said. "They always do." Rosemary nodded slowly. "Then we'll be ready." And as the sun rose fully over the ridge, casting warm light over the battered station and the dogs now gathered in peace, Nora stood once more, tired but no longer afraid. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a symbol, a spark. And as long as she breathed, they would never take her again.